Hello there, Lunar Squadron, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to our breakdown series where we are diving even deeper into the most recent trailer which we received, the Developer Diary trailer. Last time around, we went really deep into this storyboard and basically hit on all of the main missions in this game. This time around, we are kicking off our new series, doing a episode-by-episode breakdown, covering all of the missions, including the pre-missions of each of these episodes, starting off with episode 1, the Phantom Menace. There are so many cool details hidden within this storyboard, including new characters, new vehicles, new areas, and new information about this game, so you're going to want to watch the whole video. But before, Nick, we have a few messages, don't we?
Yep, we sure do. First, if you are new to the channel, we would love to have you as always, and the way to do that is just go down below this video, hit that little subscribe button, and the bell notification right on next to it. It will notify you every single time that Andreas and I upload. And second, I actually have a question for our official sponsor, Busk. Busk, this is all about episode 1, and I noticed you're absent the entire time. Where the hell were you, man? They really could have used your help. You know, I'm not mad. I'm disappointed, you know? What do you have to say for yourself?
Watch me, scorekeeper.
All right, man. Calm down. I didn't mean to talk about such a touchy subject. Let's just forget this ever happened, all right? All right, let's move on. Let's just go ahead and jump into this video, Andreas, before this gets any worse.
This is Lunar Squadron standing by. We are ready to make the jump to hyperspace. On my mark, Lunar Squadron.
You guys heard that right. Today we are going to be going over the entire story for episode 1, starting off with the main intro. We do know that this is going to start off with some sort of a cutscene, kind of dropping us into the middle of the Trade Federation blockade. Now, this time around, unlike in the complete saga where you kind of start in the boardroom in the middle of, the wayward negotiations, this time around you actually have to transport to the Trade Federation droid control ship. You're going to be piloting that consular ship, which is honestly one of my favorite LEGO sets of all time. So it's just so cool to see that we are able to pilot ships of that size. We know that this is a larger ship in the game, so it's just very cool to me that you actually have to fly this ship and board the Trade Federation droid control ship. We know that because in the very next panel, you do see Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan standing in front of that consular ship. And one more thing to note is, for those of you wondering if we only have access to the hangar inside of the droid control ship, this is kind of proof that you are going to actually be able to go down the hallways of this ship. We do see Qui-Gon in this ship, in that infamous hallway that we have seen in LEGO games past. So we do know that you will have to, find your way to that negotiation room and then ultimately exit it, which is where we find Qui-Gon kind of hacking and slashing in this image here. At that point, we presumably think that we will be boarding some droid landing ships, which will ultimately take us to Naboo, right?
Yep, we sure do. So the cool thing here is in our Naboo breakdown, we kind of talked about what are the locations of Naboo going to be, like how big is it? And here's a new confirmed location for Naboo, and that being the Naboo Swamp. Now, what I think the most important thing to note here, Andreas, is this appears to be the entry point into Otoh Gunga, the famous Gungan city, because after you arrive at the swamp, the next place you're going to go after a brief little cutscene is Otoh Gunga, isn't it?
That is completely right, and we have seen, quite a few shots from inside of the Gungan city, so it's only natural that, the story is going to take us here, and, presumably we are going to have to do some sort of a pre-level inside of Gungan city. Who knows, maybe you're going to have to directly negotiate with Boss Nass for your bongo so that you can then, make it on to the first main mission of the game, which is going to be escape the core. Nick, what are some interesting things that we picked up on just from looking at this thumbnail and the storyboard?
Yeah, so from the gameplay trailers that we have up to this point, we kind of all just assumed that you would just be escaping from the OPC killer. You wouldn't be trying to actually fight it. You were just trying to buy your time until you could escape through the core. But according to this thumbnail, it looks like that is a health bar for the OPC killer. So this is like some sort of boss battle that you're going to take on this giant fish. You're going to have to defeat it most likely, or at least hold it off long enough to escape, which I think is pretty cool. But this is the first indication that this is actually some sort of boss battle. And the one thing I do want to note, Andreas, before we move on is, up until this point, this entire episode has been completed through pre-levels and open world hub locations, which is, again, so cool. Love that. This is the first on the rails main mission of this game. Really cool.
We will be surfacing from that interaction with the OPC killer after, presumably we are able to defeat that boss battle. And that is where, just like we kind of predicted in our Naboo breakdown video, we will be ultimately surfacing on one of the canals which run throughout the streets of Theed, which is very cool because if you think about it, even games like Battlefront 2, which had a really high-def version of Theed, you were never able to swim around in the canals of Theed. That's just not a thing that I can recall ever doing in a Star Wars game, at least in recent memory. So again, just a testament to how expansive this game is. And one other thing to note is the things to do within Theed. You get a pretty good peek of the minimap here. And Nick, how populated does this minimap look?
Yeah, that was the first thing that both you and I talked about when we were going through these thumbnails, is just take a look at the minimap on both of these shots from the pre-levels on Naboo and within Theed. There are so many points of interest on this minimap. There's going to be so much stuff to do in these locations on this game. This game, honestly, Andreas, I know both you and I have kind of tempered our expectations up to this point, but the more I see of this game and the interface and the minimap and all of this stuff, this game appears to be pretty massive. Now, there is one thing I want to note before we move on. For these pre-levels, it's something I really noticed here on these feed shots, is if you take a look at the top left, there is a particular interface that appears for these pre-levels. It is completely different than the interface that appears for main levels. It's very hazy. These pictures are really hard to kind of make out what exactly is going on there. We're not sure if it's text, but it also kind of looks like it might be some sort of star system. So one theory we had for this is that for these pre-levels, you have to complete a certain amount of objectives, and like as you complete an objective, you'll fill out this star bar if it is a set of stars. Again, we can't really tell. It might be text, but for me, it kind of looks like stars. And as you complete objectives, you'll gain the quote-unquote star, and once you have completed all the objectives you need to and filled out the entire star bar, you can move on to your next mission, whether that be another pre-level or the next main level. That's just kind of a little theory that we put together here. Again, we cannot tell, but to me, Andreas, they just kind of look like stars. So, cool little possible way to complete and progress through this game, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does look like some form of a progress tracker here, which does lead us to believe that you are going to have to do a certain number of these pre-levels before you are allowed to do the next main level. And that just makes perfect sense, because you're going to have to naturally do some of these things. Like, I think this will really start to paint a vivid picture when we get into some of the pre-levels that you have to do in episode 2. I'm directly thinking of before you can go, to Camino, you've got to go to the Jedi Archive first to find out where it is. There's a natural progression to these levels, and so it makes sense that there's some sort of progress tracker with the pre-levels that lets you know how many of them you've done before you can go on to the next step. And speaking of next steps, the next step, after we are done rescuing Queen Amidala from Theed, is we are going to be heading down to Tatooine. We know that the hyperdrive on the Nubian starfighter is going to be run down. One interesting point here being, previously, Nick, we thought that you had to use hyperspace to travel from areas such as Naboo across those solid lines in the galaxy map to areas such as Tatooine. Knowing just how the story plays out, knowing that the Nubian starfighter has a broken hyperdrive, how do we think we're going to be able to go across this line here?
I think it's just going to be handled by a cutscene in this regard. Probably when you're in free play, it will be handled by that hyperspace mechanism that we've seen in the trailers. But for me, it's probably just going to be a cutscene just to, progress the story along. I don't think they're going to do anything crazy here. They're just going to keep it consistent with the game or with the film. Now, the one thing I do want to note here, Andreas, and it's something I noticed when we were at the beginning of this game, is this is actually going to be dropping you off in the space surrounding Tatooine, which we see multiple times, that you aren't just going to be dropped off on the planet via some sort of cutscene. You're actually going to be having to fly up to these planets, which is really cool. It just kind of adds to the overall scope of this game and the really immersion they're going for with this game. I thought this was really cool. It's a small little detail in the grand scheme of things. I thought it was really cool.
It really does make you feel like you are pulling yourself through these stories rather than, the story kind of pulling you along for the ride, which I totally am here for 100%. Once you are going to be, doing that legwork of actually flying and landing on Tatooine, we know that you're going to be making your first appearance in Mos Espa. Speaking of first appearances in Mos Espa, isn't this probably the first appearance that we've seen of Mos Espa in this game, aside from, one shot of young Anakin Skywalker in Watto's junk shop? I mean, this is kind of our first look, right?
Yeah, it sure is. This appears to be our first official look at the overall skyline or scenery of Mos Espa, and not only that, we actually see a new appearance for Qui-Gon. It is him with his, I'm just going to call it a poncho. It's probably not a poncho, but it's Qui-Gon with his poncho, so we're calling it that. Again, if you take a look at the minimap, there's going to be a lot of stuff to do on Mos Espa as well, so all of these locations going to have a lot of stuff to do. Really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of leads me to believe that, although we haven't really seen much of Mos Espa, maybe it is going to be a pretty substantial location in this game. Maybe we're going to be getting, Book of Boba Fett Mos Espa instead of, Episode 1 Mos Espa. It's going to be like a sprawling metropolis. That said, we know at least one place that we're going to be able to go within Mos Espa is Watto's Junk Shop. This is a place that I was wondering if I had to, make a list of places that we had to go within Mos Espa. This is one of them because, as we know, it is integral to the story of Episode 1, and this is just, again, confirmation that we will be getting to go there, and you get a front-facing view, albeit very hazy, of that new Qui-Gon poncho appearance. So, just cool to know that we're going to be able to actually go there, right?
Yeah, it sure is. I do wonder if it will be a seamless transition where you can just enter the shop and then exit back into Mos Espa, or if there will be some sort of loading screen here. Just something I've been wondering about. Now, the next shot we see is actually only the second main level. Up to this point, we've only completed one main level for Episode 1. Again, I just want to kind of point out how crazy that is. And the second main level is, now that's pod racing. Obviously, you are going to be completing and competing in the Boonta Eve Classic as Anakin, as you literally fight for your life and for the hyperdrive for the Nubian Royal Starfighter. Really cool stuff. Now, Andreas, this is actually a new shot of this, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. In the past, we really did see this kind of pseudo first-person view. Here, we're actually seeing a third-person over-the-shoulder view. Does this mean that the other one was just, a cinematic angle for trailers? Or does it mean that we're going to be able to toggle between third person, first person? Let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. I don't think it would hurt to give us a toggle when we are doing things like, pod racing. That would be kind of cool. And we get a new location because in the trailer we saw Mushroom Mesa. Here we are getting a great look at the actual arena. One thing I'm wondering is, are we going to be able to freely travel to the Mos Espa arena? And if so, are we going to be able to do things like race speeders or pod racers that we've made and made modifications to, or any ships that we have for that matter? I just think it would be really cool to, take your favorite ship, speeder, pod racer, whatever, and then do time trials on this track, doing the whole Boonta Eve whenever you want. Just a cool idea. Hope they implement it.
Yeah, that would be really cool, and it looks like it might be potentially something in this game if it's as big as they say it is. Now, the next shot we see in the next pre-level is actually our favorite place, Coruscant, and it is the space surrounding Coruscant, the local space. Again, really cool. Just get another cool little shot of Coruscant. And then the next shot is that landing pad in the Federal District. Now, in our Coruscant breakdown, we had theorized that that shot of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan on that landing pad was the entry point into the Federal District of Coruscant, and it appears that that is actually the case. We were right about that, because if you look, it is the exact same landing pad. It is, again, at day for the Federal District. It's the same time of day, so I do wonder if the Federal District will ever appear at night, say in Episode 3, since all of those Federal District appearances pretty much happen at night in that game. Not game-breaking, but definitely something I hope they pay attention to. But this is obviously the same landing pad. You see the Jedi Temple right there behind them. So, cool little thing. This appears to be the entry point for the Federal District into Coruscant, at least from space.
And then after, we are done kind of running around the Senate, maybe even, like you pointed out, the Jedi Temple in the back, we know that we do make a trip up to the Jedi Council room. We do know that we are going to be making our way back to Naboo, which is where we really do see kind of a big act in this game, being kind of 3 back-to-back, pretty substantial actual main levels for this episode. We've kind of gone in depth with these levels in our main mission breakdown, so I don't want to go into that level of complete depth, but I do want to point out some really cool things that we noticed from these thumbnails, particularly from this first shot. Nick, what are some details that we noticed from Retake Naboo?
Yeah, so the first thing that pops off the screen to me is that we see Darth Maul's very extensive health bar. He has a huge health bar, which is not surprising. It's Darth Maul. It's one of the main boss battles in this entire game, so it makes sense. Now, the one thing I do want to talk about is just below the health bar. Is that some sort of like heart system where it's multiple health bars? You know, in old games where health bars would kind of stack on top of themselves? Do we think it's something like that, or do you think it's just like one solid health bar and it's just a very big health bar that you will just try to take on as you progress through this reactor area?
It's definitely, again, very hard to make out. I wish these were higher quality so that we can, but it also kind of just gives us more to kind of hope for and like wait on here, which is kind of cool. One detail that we do know for sure is that there appears to be some form of a either quick time event in the center of the screen or some sort of a stamina bar. It looks just like the stamina bar from Battlefront 2. Nick, any ideas what this thing is? I know we've never seen this before, so it could be anything.
Yeah, my initial reaction to this is either some sort of quick time event, which we know will be in this game, or perhaps we've seen this before. Their sabers do appear to be locked, and we've seen this mechanic before in Battlefront 2015, for example, and a handful of other kind of sword-like games where you will clash, and then you'll have to press, like, say, square, for example, on the PlayStation, as fast as you can to build up that bar to kind of break the lock and push the enemy back. So I think it will be either something like that or perhaps a look at that quick time event.
The last detail that we noticed from this one thumbnail, I know there's so many details just to grab from one image here, is this is our first look at the combo multiplier or tracker from the lightsaber wielders. I know beforehand we did see this sort of combo system on the right-hand side for blaster-wielding characters, but we haven't seen it for lightsaber wielders such as Qui-Gon here. So it's just good to know that that multiplier system and that combo system is going to exist for the melee combat characters in this game as well.
Now, the next two thumbnails are just dealing with the Battle of Naboo. There really isn't much to take from this, and we already covered this in our all-confirmed levels for Episode 1, Episode 2, and Episode 4, but just to reiterate very briefly, the first sequence will be with you using Jar Jar to run around and fight off in that, traditional for this game, third-person over-the-shoulder view. You're fighting off B-1 battle droids trying to protect the fields of Naboo, and then in the next sequence, we're guessing, we can't really tell because there is no thumbnail, it is missing, is going to be that sort of Space Invaders Galaga sequence that we've seen a few times throughout the trailers of you just fighting off the big Trade Federation army. So, nothing much to get from here. The last thing, Andreas, which is the final main level of this game, is the command ship level. Now, Andreas, I think the big question I have here about this level, if you take a look at the thumbnail, you see you are already within the Trade Federation ship. The big question I think I have, and a lot of people might have, is do we think this level will take on the entire sequence? Will we fly up to the Trade Federation ship, battle the Trade Federation ship's defenses, and make our way into the Trade Federation command ship and then destroy it from the inside? Or is this level just going to start us from within the inside and we're just going to have to go through like multiple stages of defenses within the Trade Federation ship? What are we thinking?
I think if you are going to kind of dethrone the Darth Maul level from being that grand finale, you have to replace it with something that is of a grand scale. And I don't think they would just skimp out on this finale here. I would expect this to be sort of the player's first exposure to a capital ship battle, a proper capital ship battle in this game, where you are going to have to face that droid control ship from the exterior. You're going to have to do a certain level of damage to it to gain access to those interior areas. You're going to have to go to the interior, which we see right here from the thumbnail, and then you are going to, hit your critical target, thus taking out the droid army on Naboo down below. This does have the potential to be a very cool level and just as well fitting of a finale role in this episode if done in the right way. And you know what? Just based on looking at this thumbnail, I think they might have nailed it here. Well, there you have it. That is our complete breakdown of episode 1. Please let us know in the comments down below which of these levels, whether it be a pre-level or a main level, are you all most excited to play through in this game? Which of these new locations are you most excited for? Or which of these ships are you most excited to fly? Whatever you are excited about, let us know in the comments down below. Next time around, we are going to be going through episode 2 when we revisit this series. So let us know in the comments down below also what you're most excited for about episode 2 as well. However, that's going to do it for this breakdown. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, we will see you all next time.